Hi, everyone. It's our Monday night Facebook Live, and I'll just chit-chat for a little while till I make sure that some people have joined in. As you can see, my new office in Florida, I'm very excited about it. It looks big, but it really isn't. This little space here is actually it. Behind there is another room that's used for something completely different. But this is my new little office. It's, I don't know, maybe 4 feet wide and about 15 feet, maybe 12 feet long. Really tiny, but great. I have all windows here looking outside. I see palm trees, and when I have the windows open, and I often do, I can hear the crashing of the waves, which is so great. It's just beautiful. I spend a lot of time, I shouldn't say that, every morning my husband and I walk on the beach, and then we often go again at night. So when we finish here tonight, I'm back out, even though it's going to be well after 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's great to walk the beach or along the path close by to the beach where we can see and smell and hear the ocean crashing. So I feel very blessed to live here. It's really great. I know my poor family is suffering in the cold up north, but we're going to be going back and forth. I have my mother to take care of, and I certainly miss seeing my children, so we're going to be going back and forth. So enough chit chat. I do want. I see lots of people that I know. Hi, Natalie, and I see a couple others. It's great to see you. Many people I recognize, but there are a lot of folks I don't recognize. I'm actually quite surprised at the numbers of folks who come in and watch this. I think last week it was something like 3,000 people, which is, it amazes me. It's really fascinating. So tonight, I'm going to talk about heavy metals, and I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but I want to give you my take on it. So let's talk a little bit about heavy metals. First of all, as a homeopath, I love heavy metals. I love toxins. You know, when they're gross form, they're not so great. But remember, in homeopathy, we get what's gross and toxic. The more toxic it is, the better the medicine is when it's diluted 200 times to the 100th power, or 30 times, or even only 6 times, or 3 times to the 100th or the 10th power. Excellent. So the more toxic something is, the more beneficial it can be in many cases to someone who's using homeopathy. So I want you to learn to not be afraid of heavy metals as much as our society as of late has been, I think, making people far too frightened of them. Instead, I want you to know that we can harness them using them homeopathically, and also that they are sometimes not as dangerous as, well, I don't want to say that. They're dangerous. Don't get me wrong. When someone has a considerable amount of gross heavy metals, then of course they can be dangerous. You know, aluminum from perspiration or antiperspirants, and mercury found in amalgams. It's finally being accepted by many dentists, in spite of the American Dental Association, that perhaps the mercury is not such a good thing to put in people's mouths and let it sit there for a lifetime. So we do have to be watchful of them, but I think that it's gone in some arenas a little bit too far, and so I'm going to give you my take on this. There are, of course, the health risks, but here's the way that I want you to look at it. Beware of being aware. And what I mean by this is that I actually call this heavy metal neurosis, not caused by heavy metals, but caused by learning that you have heavy metals. I have far too many people come to me as students and clients, and myself, it happened to me as well when I was first tested many years ago at Yale University. They said, "Oh my goodness, you have heavy metals," and they identified all my pathogens. And it was a very scary thing. And it led me to become very frightened and fearful of every little thing. I would not eat fish any longer, and I was afraid of being in traffic because of the heavy metals and the leaded gasoline. In those days, there was still leaded gasoline, and everything in my life was about purity, purity, purity. Now, I went overboard, and I see many, many folks traveling down that road. And this happened to me back in the early 80s, and now it's just happening to many others. I want you to be wary of these diagnoses, or they're actually not a diagnosis, this identification of heavy metals. Heavy metals and, pathogens and microorganisms, and because they are not, at least from a homeopathic point of view, they are not really significant. What is significant is the name of the disease, that some might say is being caused by heavy metals, that some might say is being caused by pathogens, strep or staph, etc. Now, we don't ignore this information, but I worry that folks focus too much on it and become hyper-vigilant, and that in itself can become a disease that I think in many cases is worse than actually having the heavy metals, because it causes a hypervigilance that causes many a lifestyle and a life and a way of thinking that is always searching for more problems. And we don't want that. Instead, I want you to live your life. So I want you to start thinking in terms of what is the name of the condition that you have? Because heavy metals is not a condition. It is an identification of a substance that may or may not be causing that condition. It is a supposition, and I want you to remember that. Interestingly, I just went for a dental checkup because I've had an infection in my mandible for many years, and I've been treating it homeopathically, strictly homeopathically, I might add. And so every once in a while, I go for a sonogram to see how far it's been reduced, and it is consistently reduced every time I go, pretty much. I mean, I have little backs and forths here and there, but generally speaking, it's reduced. And certainly overall, through the years that I've been doing this, the pathology has become almost non-existent. But I still go and get it checked. And I also had a bioenergetic testing because it's part of this dentist's philosophy and what she offers. And what showed up was that I had very heavy, large amounts of lead and mercury. Now, where would I get lead or mercury? I mean, this is I've been tested like this bioenergetically in the past, and that never showed up before. Do I eat fish? Yes, but it's wild caught. It's from Alaska. It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. No substance on this earth is void of something that could cause potential. And oddly enough, I feel better now at, I'll be 67 in a couple months, now than I did when I was 30. I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but I have a ton of energy. I work all day. I walk in the morning. I work all day, 6 days a week, and even on Sundays. If we can slip in church, we do that in the morning. I still go for my walk. Sometimes I even take an appointment or two on Sunday, especially if it's someone that's in need. And I write articles, and I write blogs, and I write books and courses, and I work with I have a substantial, not huge, but a substantial team that I have to respond to their questions, etc. So I have a very, very busy life. Plus, I have a great relationship with my husband. We spend a lot of time together and with our children, and I take care of my mother from time to time, with her coming and living with me in my home. So I've got a lot of energy. So when someone tells me that I have heavy metals, I take it with a grain of salt. I'm really, to be honest, I'm really not worried. Now, am I being naive? Perhaps, but I feel better now than I ever have. and I sleep well. And I'm able to get past sorrows. I just lost my father recently. It was very painful for a period of time, but I feel as though my sorrow and my grief was within the range of normal, or perhaps even less sorrowful than I expected it to be. So are the heavy metals causing me illness? And that's the big question. So I see that there are naturopaths and clinical ecologists and functional MDs who tell us that your leaky gut is a result of heavy metals. Hence, do this. Coffee enemas and supplements and diets and et cetera, et cetera. And again, I'm not against all of that, but I think we have an easier way to do this. And of course, it's, homeopathy. Otherwise, I'd be a naturopath or something else. I believe in homeopathy because I see how it works. So if someone has leaky gut, that still doesn't give us a lot of information because we can't see the gut actually leaking. What we can say, though, is the symptoms that are presenting are, let's say there's gas or bloating or eructations or indigestion. Why not just use the medicine, the homeopathic medicine, Lycopodium 200, twice daily, instead of trying to figure out what could be causing this? It's not necessary to know exactly what's causing. Now, if you happen to know, by all means, we don't want to deny it and we don't want to ignore it, but we can go by just what's presenting because those are factual. Symptoms never lie. Well, there is an exception. Symptoms will lie, and they're called side effects when we're using drugs, because drugs will cause a new set of symptoms, but those are actually called side effects. But aside from that, if you're not taking drugs, or even if you are taking drugs and you know what the side effects have been for you for a long period of time, and you know that it's not from this or that, but you're still experiencing, let's say, constipation, then we know that that we can use a homeopathic medicine. As a matter of fact, talking about heavy metals and lead, we can use the medicine plumbum. That is homeopathic lead. We can mix that with Lycopodium 200, which happens to be a plant, and mix that with plumbum 200. Plumbum is, again, homeopathic lead. We use it in a 200 potency, 200C, and that is diluted 200 times to the 100th power. So that what that does is it gives us a medicine made from a very toxic substance and corrects constipation regardless of the cause. Whether the cause is from lead, which I beg to differ that you'll ever really know the actual cause, we could say that the cause came ever since I took antibiotics, ever since I had that vaccine, ever since I had that new amalgam put in. We can make those suppositions, and they are still somewhat useful because, of course, we're putting together all the pieces of the puzzle. But to know for certain is not the same as knowing for certain that this person indeed has constipation. That we know. They're reporting it. It's real. It's factual. It's scientific. Symptoms don't lie. So I urge you to be careful, be wary of going too deep and trying to figure out the whys, because there are 100 trillion cells in the human body. And I've said this so many times, and probably many of you have heard me say this many times. 100 trillion cells in the human body is what's being reported these days. And 90% of them are microorganisms. They are not human. They are from there are other kinds of organisms. So is it yeast that's causing this? How do we know? If the 90% of 100 trillion could potentially be the cause. How do we know it's not strep or staph or herpes? How do we know that it's heavy metals that's causing this? So I urge you to be wary of too much attribution to a specific cause, and instead use the symptoms to determine. We don't treat the symptoms, folks. Remember that. We don't treat symptoms in homeopathy. We use symptoms. So we want to know the name of the condition, what organ is being affected, and perhaps a couple of, or two or three aspects of how it's presenting to determine which medicine it is. So be wary of that, because I think it can make people hypervigilant and very frightened, very nervous, because then they're thinking, yikes, I'm toxic. Not a good way to think. Not a good way to think. Now, I know that there are simple ways, simple measures that, and I know you know all of this, so I'm just kind of quickly go through them. Eat cleanly, eat organic, pasture-raised, family farm products. Always try to get to family farms if you possibly can. But you already know this. Stay away from amalgam fillings. If you can, have them removed. If you're not too sickly, if your vital force can handle it, it's not a bad idea perhaps to have them removed. And I don't say absolutely across the board that they should be removed, because sometimes that in itself can cause trouble. But don't add any more, and don't let them be placed in your child's mouth. But you already know that. I know you know that, because you wouldn't be following me and reading this kind of information. Eat wild-caught fish from uncontaminated waters. But you already knew that too. Stay away from drugs. You know this, but you're not sure how to go about doing this. And this is the one bugaboo that I come across with people all the time. Everyone knows they shouldn't be taking drugs. Everyone knows that synthetic drugs are a problem. The catch-22 is they don't know what to do instead of. So instead of, I urge you to learn how to use homeopathy. So stay away from drugs. You know, the flu vaccine has thimerosal in it. That's mercury. Be careful of any contaminants with aluminum and any other heavy metals in products that you use on your skin, in antiperspirants, etc. Be careful of what you know all of this. So I don't want to belabor it too much. Don't use products in the home that are something that you purchase pre-made. Just make it yourself. Use vinegar to clean your house. And I mean even raw vinegar. I use raw vinegar to clean my home. I put it on my mop, or sometimes I just use a little bit of innocuous soap, put a little essential oil on there in the bucket, and rinse that all together and use that on my floors. I use that in toilets. I use my laundry soap is very clean, very simple. Use essential oils. Keep your life simple, keep it clean, inexpensive. Teach your children how to count on themselves for making their own foods, building and maintaining a garden, tending a garden. This is all just common sense. Don't put sunscreen on your kid's skin or on your skin. Just wear hats. Put a little cover on. Put a little batiste top on. Sit under an umbrella. Don't sit out in the sun and bake. We don't need those kinds of products. They are at best superfluous, and at worst can cause toxins to leach into the skin. Use non-toxic nail polish if you must use nail polish. So keep it simple, keep it clean, and it's a great way to go. Now it just coincides tonight with a wonderful heavy metal summit. I don't know that I agree with everyone because I don't know all the speakers, but I'll tell you the ones I do know, who I do like, and it's free. So I urge you to go there tonight, perhaps now when we finish with this. I love Dr. Eric Zielinski. This is called the Heavy Metal Summit. He's a friend of mine, and he talks about essential oils for dealing with heavy metals. Dr. Elisa Song is a pediatrician. She uses homeopathy, and she's interviewed me on her summits. And Dr. Jay Davidson also, I've been on his summits. I know these folks, so I trust them, and I believe in what they have to say. I don't know the other members of this particular summit, but so check it out. Go to Heavy Metal Summit tonight. It's free, and anything you can get for free, take advantage of. And I'm going to urge you to do the same thing with my blog. It's free. There's plenty of free to learn. If you want to do more, there's more to learn. Then also consider joining study groups. That's how you learn quickly and appropriately. I have some great study groups. If you go to my blog and go to joettecalabrese.com, just check out our courses, or excuse me, our study groups. Courses are for later if you decide you want to go that far. More importantly, I urge you to learn with your friends and learn as much as you can. When someone in your household is sick, just go to my blog and use it. 9 years worth of free giveaways. So take advantage, folks. Let me see what we've got here. Do we have any questions that need to be answered here, Perry?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, no questions? How could that be? Goodness sakes.
But there's a woman, Diana Williams, who's starting her first day at the Petite Clinic, at the Banerjee Clinic.
Wow, great. Yeah, study by the protocols that I'm talking about, and many of them are, most of them are the Banerjee protocols, which are, as far as I'm concerned, the best way to use homeopathy on earth today. And I've studied with many, and I've studied all the methods, of course, classical, which I was trained in, but there are offshoots of classical, and I've studied and read and gone to conferences through the years, but this is the one, this is the method that I think is the most efficacious and the most easily understood and most easily used. So take advantage. I'm here to try to teach you as much as I possibly can. Love you all. God bless all of you. We're making it a short one tonight, and I'll see you in a week. Take care, folks. God bless.